Welcome, Dr. Frawley. Thank you so much for joining me again to discuss our topic today, which is the Rig Veda. And I hear from you that you're an expert in the topic, and it's really one of your seminal pieces of work. And you didn't use those words, so forgive me for acknowledging that you are the expert on the topic. And to put it in context for those of you like me who have not read the original text or know very little about it, this book here, Vedic Yoga, The Path of the Rishi, written by David Frawley, is probably a good modern, would you say, summary or transmission of the teachings?
Well, let's put it into perspective. First, it's a big book. For example, it has 400 references to the ancient Vedic text. It is the culmination of many decades of working on the Rig Veda with various inspirations. A lot of it came originally through Sri Aurobindo and some of his disciples who were connected to Ganapati Muni and Ramana. And for example, in 1980 to 1985, I did about 500 pages of articles for Sri Aurobindo Ashram publications on Rig Veda. M.P. Pandit, who was the secretary of the ashram, was my great, he was the one who motivated me to do all of that. But then we worked with it in various areas, and I studied it in the original Sanskrit for many years. Even looking over it again today, I was familiar with a lot of the verses. There's only 10,000 verses in Rig Veda itself, and other ones, Brahmanas, Upanishads, Aranyakas have also quite a few. And the main thing about the Rig Veda, it is the preserved voice of the ancient rishis who were Mahayogis, who lived in an earlier and higher yuga, and a yuga in which they were accessing cosmic intelligence, just like the yogi does, and rather than just simply developing technology. They also knew, as you see in a lot of the ancients, they were able to work with the forces of nature, whether geological, whether the plants, so many things. So it was another yuga. And these ancient languages were highly symbolic and mantric and multi-dimensional. In other words, they were trying to expand the mind into a universality, whereas today our words are very precisely defined and kept in a very small compartment. So that legacy has been preserved, which is amazing. And it's been carried down orally for so many generations. And some of the mantras like Gayatri or Mrityunjaya are still commonly used. Otherwise, a lot of the traditional Pandits will do different Vedic chantings also. It may be relative to different celebrations and events or times of the day. So it is the doorway there, and it is the foundation of all of that, what we know of as yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism, all the dharmic traditions. Term dharma comes from there and has survived all these hundreds of years and had counterparts to some degrees. For example, Vedic idea of Saptarishis, or the seven rishis, seven sages you have in China, you have it in Mesopotamia, and this whole concept of the ancient sages before the Great Deluge or whatever. There's a lot of ancient history, and of course the idea that we've had many yugas or world ages as a species. Where they all went, we can't say. And then its connection to so many things. And even a lot of the modern gurus were connected to the Vedic teachings, as we said, Aurobindo, Ganapati Muni, and of course, Yogananda's tradition as well with the yugas. And all the Vedic acharyas, all the Vedantic acharyas have to learn certain basic teachings. And yoga is rooted in all the way back to Rig Veda, the oldest text that we have, but so are all the other traditions, Vedic traditions, which are what are called Vedangas or Upavedas, or ways of approaching the Vedas. For example, Jyotish or astrology is said to be the eye of the Vedas. So it has certain meanings. There are also mathematical codes. My friend, Professor Subhash Kak, who is one of the leading scientists in the world, he could also show the mathematical codes where they knew how distances between planets, speed of light, and letters had their numerical equivalents as well. So many secrets there. It's come out to some degree, and Devatas, and then a continuity of the teachings, the lokas, and there's something of a revival. People are more familiar with yoga when they don't know. A lot of them think yoga is not Vedic, but they don't know Sanskrit. Yunjante mana uta yunjante dio. Yunja means yogically develop the manas and the buddhi. This is a verse from Rig Veda, but it occurs in the Upanishads. Shweta Shwatara has a whole section on yoga, mainly Vedic quotes. Then there is the famous statement, Aham Brahmasmi, of Yajnavalkya, another Upanishad, Brihad Aranyaka. Aham, the I, is Brahman, Atman, the cosmic reality. And when he says this in the Brihad Aranyaka, he says this is what the Rishi Vamadeva meant when he said, Aham Manor Abhavam Suryascha. I was Manu, which is the Purusha, which is the primal being. And Surya, the sun. Sun is the symbol of the Atma. So when these ancient people were worshiping the sun, they weren't just looking at it as a luminary in the sky. So many of these Vedic and yogic teachings, Vedantic teachings, can be traced back to verses in Rig Veda and even other Vedas and other aspects of the teachings, Upanishads. So the idea of identifying yoga as asana and saying there's no asanas in Rig Veda, even that's not true, because they all had their rituals and the various gestures and movements that, and pranayama is a very important part. In Vedas, you have the concept of a yajna, of an offering. Now, even going back to Yajnavalkya and Shatapatha, he said, we have 10,800 breaths by day and by night, 21,600 a day. That's one every 4 seconds. And that's also connecting prana with the sun. And they talked about building the fire altar. And the fire altar is like a pyramid. But he says you can also build that with mantras and so forth. So highly symbolic cultures. We see these all over the world. For example, in ancient Egypt, you see that as well. And there's certain recognition of the causal body, subtle body, not just the physical. For example, Egyptian and Vedic, ka is the subtle, is the causal. Ka also means karma, kriya, etc. Ba, light, is also the subtle. There were connections in various ways. So the Vedas have that heritage, and there have been a number of great modern gurus who have also unfolded a lot of the secrets of the Vedas. Aurobindo is more well known. Kapali Shastri was not only his disciple, he also came to, as a disciple of Ganapati Muni. And there were also others. There's another figure, Sri Anirvan, who also knew Aurobindo, but had other views. He went through all these teachings. Swami Dayananda of the Arya Samaj was yet another. And Swami Veda Bharati, who we knew quite well, he was the main disciple of Swami Ram of Rishikesh. And so we discussed, in fact, he wrote the foreword to the book that you are looking into. And he was also a great yogi and discussed all the meanings of mantra, kundalini, Vedanta, and all the rest. And there were others as well. And these teachings still stay alive. And, we have then the mantra power. It's said that Vedas are a manifestation of Om. Then it's also said in Yoga Sutras that yoga is a manifestation of Om, Pranava, Ishvara. So Vedas are that heritage, but Vedas can also be connected to Ayurveda. They have Agni and all these forces, Vayu, Jyotish, the different planets, nakshatras are all there. And every aspect of the Vedas, and even talk about the music, dance, architecture. So an ancient tradition that went on for many thousands of years, and then some changes over the period of time. And the Vedas hold one of the secrets of the ancient civilizations, and the best preserved of that. But few in yoga know the Vedas except some mantras like Gayatri, which is to Surya or the sun. In fact, I sometimes tell people, we live in an age of solar energy where we're trying to bring the solar energy down through all the equipment we have devised.
Yeah.
But the mantras, the Gayatri particularly, is about bringing that solar light of intelligence into the consciousness.
Understood. And so if you were to reflect on perhaps the most important teaching that's had meaning in your life from the Rig Veda, what would that be?
That would be very difficult because, as I said, there's only 10,000 verses. It's curious, they have 432,000 verses,
Okay.
which is 108 times 4. And they say the Vedas dwell in the rays of the sun. Again, the sun is Atma, the sun is intelligence, but Atma, of course, is the main concept or the main understanding, and the mantra, and then being able to see the different levels of speech. For example, it's 4 or 7 levels of speech. Because mantra is like that, it's to integrate the multidimensional universe. It's not just to make one thing precise and something mean something different.
So when I read over this book just briefly last night, I was reminded, I suppose, of the fact that this is all within us. And I would love your commentary on that. So these teachings are within us, and this, the sun is in our consciousness, and even the prana and the rivers that we see are part of us. And if you feel that I'm incorrect in saying that, please let me know. But that's what I receive when I read this text. Although I must say, for the first few years when I started reading that, I found it very difficult to understand or even digest.
Yeah, it's difficult, but let's start out with something like Agni. Agni, Ayurveda, we have the Jataragni, the digestive fire. Oh, we have the Pranagni, the fire of the breath. Agni begins as Jivatma, the individual Jiva reincarnating entity who is like a flame in the spiritual heart, comes in at birth, goes out at death, comes into another body, but it grows in awareness and eventually becomes the sun. We're at the time of the winter solstice. That's when Agni, the child Kumar, is born. The Christ child is kind of a symbol of that to some degree. And then it follows the path of the Devas to the summer solstice, which is the sun, which is the enlightened, the illumined Sahasrar. They read the book of nature, and they knew how all these factors worked on different dimensions and levels of consciousness. So you need to cultivate your inner Agni with various offerings, mantra, intentions, motivation. The yajna, the offering or the consecration of your being to that Agni as it grows and expands. Sri Aurobindo has a very nice book called Hymns to the Mystic Fire. He was a great poet. He could write poetry in Greek hexameters. He was raised in, I think it was either Cambridge. And so The Vedas have the certain meters, they have all their secrets, and they blend then into these other teachings that have come forth from it. And Veda means to see or to know. And the Vedic knowledge is Vidya. Vidya is the same word of ours as video because it means to see.
Mhm.
And then it's important that we preserve these teachings because there are other ancient traditions, but they haven't preserved. Egyptians have did a bit with the Book of the Dead, but there's not, there's some oral or non-written and speculative traditions, but Vedas preserve the teachings of the rishis, and then they have their gotras or their lines or their lineages, which became the different families, dynasties. Even if you go back to the Gita, Krishna says that he first taught the eternal yoga to Vivaswan, another name for the sun, particularly, and its power to illuminate and create radiance. And then Vivaswan taught it to Manu. Manu also means the sun, but is the original kind of dharmic foundation of our particular yuga or world age, who in turn taught it to the kings of the solar dynasty, the Ikshwakus, actually Rama and Buddha and even Mahavira came from that particular dynasty. They were kshatriyas. They were not just pacifists. And of course, Ram, the Ayodhya temple has come up. I had a very interesting experience because I got a call from the Indian television. They call me periodically, and they wanted me to be there for the raising of the flag, the last phase. And the prime minister was going then to all the different shrines within the temple. So it wasn't a long series, but they had me there and discussing those things when they were going on. So that was a great honor to have. Also, now we're going to be doing the World Ramayana Conference in early
Ah,
January. That will be in Madhya Pradesh on the origin of the Narmada. So Vedas are coming back in some ways, and they've gotten, the academic world has a lot of trouble with them because they take things literally. Go is a cow, Agni is a fire. Yeah,
sure.
they have to be semantically correct. They need Shiva explained exactly as he is today. But in the Vedas, Shiva is Rudra, and to some extent, Shiva is Indra, Agni. Even in the famous Rudram, which is the oldest big chant to Shiva, he talks about the Agni Somatmakam Jagat, the universe made of Agni and Soma. These are the two main Vedic devatas. So the Rig Veda is very important that way. And various aspects of yoga, they're the deities of prana. And some people say, oh, there's no bhakti yoga, but actually there's quite a bit because the main term, what they call the twambhava, thou, you.
Yeah, yeah.
I is also used, but not quite so much. And so they also honor the devata. And they have all different forms of devatas, devis, basically forms of light, but also other aspects, Bhumi Devi, Mother Earth, and all these different approaches and the forces of nature, the different types, lightning, the vayus, the pranas, the agnis, all of that. So it's a wonderful tradition, and you can find a lot of the older teachings hidden in it. And, there's a lot of talk in the Vedantic tradition saying that there are two aspects of Vedas, what they call karma kanda, aspect of ritual, and jnana kanda, which is the aspect of knowledge or self-knowledge. And some of them say that Veda is just ritual. I did find a a hymn of Adi Shankara that is to Devi and even Tripura Sundari, but ends almost every verse or two with Vedic mantras and Vedic text. And then I have some of these old texts coming out of Kanchipuram, and they also bring in the Vedanta. For example, this is a Brahmana called the Taittiriya, but they show how the Sri Vidya or the Sri Yantra is hidden in that. And of course, they're involved with some of these ritualistic activities and also maintaining the Vedic fire and maintaining that sense of sanctity. And then the Vedas teach that everything you see is a manifestation of Vak or Shakti or the divine word. Every animal is like an expression of the divine word. So each tree is the cosmic tree. And the cow has a certain meaning. The horse is the pranas, the speech, the movement.
I didn't know that.
And
So
you
each,
find some, yeah.
yeah, forgive me. So each representation in nature has a sort of cosmic force behind it, like the cow means this, or the horse means this, or the tree, or have I misunderstood you?
They're manifestation of Vak or the divine word.
Got it.
So they're created through Vak. There's the concept of logos in the Greek, where the
Sure.
logo then creates the name and the form and all of that. So that is there. And Vedas, of course, are that language that is supposed to be cosmic in nature.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so if I was just starting out in wanting to read this text and say I was beginning my journey into Vedic yoga, not the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, but Vedic yoga, what would be the most important 3 teachings that you would impart to somebody?
Well, the important thing is to understand Upanishads. Why? Because Upanishads bridge both worlds. A lot of them reflect the Vedic, and then a lot of them reflect more the yoga or the Vedanta. But even a lot of these yogic texts, by the way, Patanjali was also into mantra and Sanskrit and all those things. So that I would say go with some of these shorter Upanishads first. Isha is common, Kata Kena, Mandukya, Shvetashvatara has a lot of references to yoga, and they also use different terms. It's not like there's one language or one terminology for things. Shankara had 10 major Upanishads, and then there were many more. And of course, Gita is very important because it's said to be the essence of the Vedas, and a lot of these Vedic ideas are there.
May I stop you for a moment? I recently read Neem Karoli Baba say that the Gita is within us. So that battle is within us. That story is within
You
us.
mean Mahabharata?
Yeah.
Well, of course, all the teachings are within us. All the mantras are within us, and they're also metaphors of life and the energies there. For example, you'll find in Mahabharata all the most difficult things possible in life, and you have to deal with them.
Yeah.
It's not just simply about platitudes or personal things. You see that, of course, Ramayana and many other statements and stories. And again, the idea of symbolical language is in many traditions. Many religious traditions have symbolism, symbolic language. There's symbolic poetry of various types. And the mystical realm, for example, there's this, I think was it Yoko Boom, who did that, has this whole thing on the mystic fire. Heraclitus also had, the Greeks, they had also the mystic fire. So there are these, there's another language that the symbolic mind uses. Poetry, of course, is also a manifestation of that. Vedas are said to have 4 to 7 levels of speech. Agni is said to have 7 levels. Agni also means speech, Saraswati has 4. And so you have to understand that kind of language, whereas our world is very literal,
Mm.
outer material. And now with the technology, everything is defined in terms of name, form, and number.
So could you, just to explain it to us, perhaps give the fourth level of speech and then the seventh level of speech, just so that we can understand what those two highest levels of speech would be?
Well, the idea of speech is the highest level is para, or
Mm.
the transcendent level, which is actually uh, beyond the ordinary. I mean, we also have levels like pashanti, which is light.
Sure.
You also have madhyama, which is more poetic. And then the mantric level comes at a higher level, and even silence.
Yeah.
We also have the idea of silence as the ultimate speech, because there is vibratory energy. In fact, Ganapati Muni said that there is a lightning force of vak, or speech, that pervades all of space, comes out in different ways. And so there's a whole science of sound and speech. And of course, it is a yogic science. It's connected to prana, it's connected to buddhi, it's connected to atma, and all of that.
So I've interrupted you twice, so I'll take you back twice. The seventh level of speech there, I missed that if you said it, but just looking for the yeah, the
Well, you
seventh
see,
level.
yeah, the 4 levels are just 4.
Yeah.
7 levels are also 7 chakras. They're also 7 lokas.
Okay.
For example, Agni is tapoloka, which
Sure.
is the tapas, the 6th level. In fact, tapas is a synonym for yoga
Mhm.
in all the ancient texts. And the second pada of Yoga Sutras begins with tapas, because that's the basis of the sadhana, satya loka, but satya as absolute, satya as the highest loka. And so Vedas are also a cosmology. In fact, we talk about chakras, they're also a cosmology. They're not just simply, places or things. And also, the levels of Vak transcend the intellect. In fact, what we call the intellect is not a very high level of intelligence. Don't tell that to academicians, but
You can feel it.
well, I often tell people that uh, intellectuals are the most emotional people.
Ah,
And
okay.
people say to me, "Oh, no, no, they're detached, they reason, all of that." I says, "Yes, but disagree with them and see what happens. They will get along."
Okay.
And then higher levels of knowledge and speech go together. And union, Vedas talk about the unity of knowledge and speech, or sound and light, and connecting both together. So the mantra also has a light. It also has a yantra. It can also take a form or a murti, and and it has its music, its nada. Universe is also nada and bindu. So we
When
have these.
I just thought I'd translate. So nada means sound, and Bindu, what's a direct translation for Bindu? So, the universe is sound, and Bindu is, forgive my
Well, you
ignorance.
see, nada is sound and vibration. Bindu is a point, and so you have particle and wave in
Okay,
modern
got it.
physics.
Thank you.
It's particle and wave. The particle is the Shiva,
Sure.
nada usually the Shakti, but the bindu is that very direct, and it falls and drops. Uh, and the so the rishis, then they unlocked the meaning of the universe,
Yeah.
and they were able to access the higher lokas, realms of consciousness, and so forth. Yoga and other things, of course, came out of that and moved in different ways. There's also a lot of connections, you might be surprised, between Veda and Tantra, and particularly relative to the mantra, and even a number of the devatas being used, the role of the Shakti. And so you'll find a lot of Vedic verses, or even things like Gayatri mantra is very common in Tantric uh, text. And then, as we've already mentioned, Patanjali, and of course, Adi Shankara was a great master of all the mantras, but also all the music, uh, because you have uh, the cadence, the meters, then you have the different types of levels of chanting. There's a number of types of levels of chanting. Mainly what is used is called the Krishna Yajur Veda style, but there's a Sanatani style in the north and others. So there's some slight variations there, but there is this maintaining of the sacred nature of sound and mantra. And then the mantra protects the mind, but it also purifies the mind. So Vedic chanting is one way of clearing out the subconscious mind of all negative karmas and sanskaras.
I understand that the mind and body are one, but we could also say that the mantra purifies the body and certain illnesses and diseases.
Well, you see, it depends on what you mean by mind and body. In the Vedic sense, we discriminate between consciousness and the mind.
Yes.
And then, of course, mind and the I am the body idea, the ego. And of course, the body then is more the physical, dense matter. And then, of course, we have the prana. The mind is also more subtle, but the self is beyond all of that. You know, they call that book Yoga Beyond Body and Mind. That's where yoga was oriented originally. So, and of course, mantra aids in the flow of prana
Sure.
and in the flow through and the harmonization of the different organs and systems of the body. But it's mainly to make the mind more sattvic and the brain, and also establish the flow through the channels of the nervous system and so forth.
Okay.
But mantra is not just like panacea, the way you just do the mantra and everything.
No. It's just that you mentioned the word mind, and I thought, shall we bring in the body here? But
And then the issue is, what are your mantras? And then for a lot of people, mantra is, woe is me, I didn't get that, I want that, I'd like to go there, how come I didn't, whatever. It's your most common thoughts.
And it's
the most
interesting
common
because,
aspirations.
yeah, what I notice in the human population is that we all have the same kind of thoughts. Like it's very similar. Like I'm not good enough. It's not fair. It shouldn't have happened to me. They're very similar stories, the woe thoughts, that we tend to have. They don't seem to differentiate from pretty core themes and patterns. Those mantras, very negative tamasic mantras. Yeah.
Yes, and that's also because we are a collective entity.
Yeah.
And a lot of what we do is we're trying to maintain our status in the outer world. So we have to communicate to other people in a way that gives us something of value, or at least some way of getting attention.
Yeah. Okay. So I asked you before, and I feel that we've already covered it, but we'll go back. Just if I was just beginning to read the text, the three teachings that would help me as a yoga practitioner understand the path of Vedic yoga. And you mentioned one already, but yeah, just any others that come to mind would be helpful.
Well, the Vedic yoga, of course, we've mentioned the role of the mantra.
Yep.
We also mentioned, of course, the role, just like the yogis, to being out in nature, and the practice of samadhi, which is the unity of consciousness and a deeper insight, and also connecting to the great teachers and traditions, and making, as Aurobindo says, all life is yoga, seeing how that works, and seeing how we are organizing our lives. Is it yoga or is it something else?
What do you mean by something else?
Well, because we all have our routines, our schedules, our jobs, but it's not usually yogic. It may have a touch of that. And we're still struggling for outer happiness or outer power when all
Sure.
these things go away.
Yeah.
Whereas yoga is concerned about the ultimate or the eternal, the immortal, the ananda.
Mm. All power is within us.
Well, Shakti is within. There are all kinds of outer powers in the universe, fire, floods, there are
Mm.
all kinds of things. People have, countries have all their weapons, and
Yeah.
all of that has been going on. But unless you have to have power over yourself.
Mm.
You know,
Absolutely.
you can have power over all the rest of the world, but that in the end doesn't work at
It-
all. Those who've conquered the world, you haven't conquered yourself. You're
yes,
lost.
that's right. I think if we look at the truth of Satya Buddhi, we are the world. So we need to conquer ourselves first before anyway, we don't need to conquer the world. The world's in us is what I'm trying to say. But I do
Well,
like
we are
this.
the universe. The human world, of course, has a lot of different things going on there, and we're part of that.
Sure. It reminds me of Hanumanji's cities, the power to subjugate all, as one of the cities that he acquires in his service to Rama. But please correct me if you know it differently.
No, Hanuman has all the siddhis. Why?
Yeah.
Because he's the son of Vayu. And Vayu is the universal force, the Kriya Shakti. So he can become as large or as small as he wants. He can move as fast or as slow as he
Mhm.
wants. Uh, he has the healing powers of prana and so forth. So we can access those things, but they require, again, certain discipline and dedication.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like those. I do use them, however subtle, just this is a time to become very small because we do this all the time, on our out breath, we even learn to become less. But this, if you want to conquer this important task or, be able to reach this important phase of your life, you need to become small for a time, before you become large again. Or yeah.
Yes, yes. In fact, I like to, there's certain, I call it the kind of like yogic perceptual exercises.
Okay, good, good.
A simple one is just standing on your head in the world.
Yeah.
It gets upside down. It often looks
Yeah.
better when you're standing on your head than when you're standing on your feet. Or you look at something, you go out in nature and see something that's very small,
Sure,
the lichens, the rocks, the soil. You can, yoga is about changing perception. In fact, Raja Yoga means change of attitude,
sure.
perception, aspiration, and we forget that. And so we get trapped in certain ways that we see things. When we watch our games, we watch this, we watch that, the stock market, whatever. But there are also other perceptual things. You can learn to see boundlessly, or you can look beyond the distant horizon. You can climb a mountain and then see all the space from there because you can then open up deeper levels of perception rather than just get, you know, whatever the picture is.
Okay. So I might just look at a part in the book here and bring it to light. Actually, what I would love to discuss with you, to be honest, is Vastu Strasta, which is not appearing in the book right now. But you mentioned architecture, and it was mentioned in the Rig Veda. At that point, was it considered to be Vastu Strasta or sacred geometry, or was that not discussed in the Rig Veda? When did Vastu come in?
Well, Vastu is actually one of the aspects, one of the Upavedas.
Okay.
So, in fact, I remember some years ago, I was having a discussion with the Shankaracharyas of Kanchipuram,
Mhm.
and we were discussing that. And he says, all the Vedic sciences, Jyotish deals with time, Vastu deals with space and location and so forth. So yeah, of course, Vastu is the idea of sacred space or various energy currents moving. Is then that came more in the temples, but it
Yeah.
also came more in certain sacred places. And the temple is then a way of connecting to the universal forces. The ancient pyramids and so forth are things all over the world. They're trying to draw down cosmic energies either through their structure or through the rituals, the mantras, the meditations, the offerings that were made there. So you could link the physical world with the higher lokas. And then later religion wanted to conquer and convert the world. It became an extension of the military. So then that had a different meaning. But the ancients were trying to make those connections or aligning the different parts of pyramids or pillars with solstices, equinox, cosmic alignment, and so forth. And there's a vastu to the mantra too.
Okay. Can you explain what that means? A vastu, a space to the mantra, or?
Well, there are different devatas for each direction of space in the Vastu Shastra.
Mhm.
And so they connect with their particular direction. Some are more expansive, some are more contractive, and so forth. And then, of course, you have devatas, or you have energization of various devatas. For example, you have a Kula Devata, the family Devata. You have the Grama Devata, the Devata of the village or the town. You even have the Desha Devata, the Devata of the country, and all of that, which is a way to try to align with these cosmic powers.
Yeah. So I've mentioned to you in emails before that we have a landscape architectural plan that focuses on Vastu Shastra, so that all the elements are catered for in the building and the temple where people come, or the place where people come to practice here. And so my hope is that when people come, that those elements are balanced in their bodies and minds through coming into this space. Would you agree that that would be a suitable intention that is based on these teachings, particularly the Vedic science?
You have to create a sacred space. But we say you need sacred space and sacred time. Ordinary time or space isn't going to do much for you. So, of course, and Vastu also has ways of making sacred space sacred. There are various murtis that are used, there are puja rooms or various types of sacred spaces that are required, special plants, all of that. And then, of course, the ghee lamps, I mean, so many things.
Okay.
But we want to be entertained. We don't want to become sacred.
And just going back, we were talking about the mantra Aham Brahmasi. Correct me. Asi. Yeah.
Asmi.
Asmi. Sorry, I missed that again.
Aham, which is I. Brahma. Asmi means I am.
Okay. So I have heard a teaching that we should not use this mantra because, and I can't remember which Satguru mentioned it, but just as the idea of, that separate self-calling on Brahman to become that, and would love your commentary on that idea.
Well, you have to understand the application of the mantra.
Sure.
Obviously, anything that has a sound, somebody can copy.
Yeah. Okay.
And and you have to understand what it means. In fact, you will find in Shankara's work, he has many pages on what does Aham Brahmasmi mean, what does Tattvamasi mean. Aham, A is the first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet, Ha is the last letter of the alphabet. Aham is I, not in the sense of I am the body. It is that spontaneous sense of being. And here they discriminate different levels of knowing. And for example, you have knowledge through your senses. But they say the ultimate knowledge is what they call the aparoksha, or the direct, unmediated. What the only thing is you, I. The self-awareness is the ultimate being there is. We are all part of that being. So there is a sadhana that goes with it. And there are, of course, various texts and teachings. And of course, in self-inquiry, who am I? Or what am I? Or whatever. I mean, there is what is the I? Or what is that that comes out, that arises spontaneously, and that is known to you without having to be specifically known or taught. They call those the Mahavakyas, but there are many similar great sayings and teachings that trigger the awareness to go to a deeper level, particularly to the Hridaya, as Ramana says, because that is the source of, even in Yoga Sutras, the Chitta dwells in Hridaya, Prana, Vak, and of course, Devata and Atma, but that is the Hridaya or the spiritual heart.
Okay. So then also, just for everyone, and for me, actually, please, just describing Tattva Asi, Tattvam Asi.
Tatvamasi.
Yeah, so thou art that, or how would you like to describe that to us?
Well, Tat, you have Tat Sat Om. In a certain sense, Tat is consciousness and Sat is being, Satchidananda. So, and Tat Twam, Twa is also a statement of respect, like thou. We don't have that anymore. We only have you. You've
Yes.
eliminated those. You have those in other uh, languages. And that's also focused consciousness. Tatwam. Twam is also that, like the essence of your, how should we say, not just self, but the you, the thou, the essence of the, might say, respect and so forth.
Mhm.
So that's another way of harmonizing the energies.
And if someone was to watch this interview today and take away a mantra from it because they may not be practicing mantra yoga, what would you recommend from the mantras we've spoken about? Is there something that you would offer?
Well, I mean, we've only touched the
Very
surface of
fair bit of them, yeah.
Vedic mantras. Of course, Gayatri is 24 uh, syllables.
Sure.
I think Mahamrityunjaya is probably 44 syllables. There are, if you want to use specific Vedic mantras, those are most commonly used. And then Upanishadic mantras, of course, are the Mahavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tatvam Asi Ayam Atma, Brahma, and so forth. So there are whole sets of mantras there, or else you can just open up one of these texts, maybe start with the Upanishads, you can find a mantra there, but you have to know that. And there's a lot of good chanting of mantras that you can get, particularly from South India, because in South India, they have that whole tradition of Sanskrit chanting. They'll often do the Karnataka and also the Tamil, and you'll find a lot of that's in fact, some of these singers have millions of people watching. And one group is, as they just simply did a tour of the United States or whatever. And then, because the question is not to engage the mind, but to kind of let the mind go. And in our language, we are identifying things certain ways, and we identify. How do you identify yourself? It's a silly question because you are yourself. You're not, you have two selves, one that knows the other self.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm taking away from that, probably the Gayatri is a good starting point. And of course, there's many others that we can look into. But for someone who's just beginning, that maybe that's a good start.
Yes. And then even the simple bija mantras, in a book we did on the mantra yoga and primal sound, we showed all the basic bija shakti mantras are. And then they're often combined different forms relative, particularly for the Devi worship, Panchadashi mantra and so forth. And each Devata has its mantra. So you choose mantra relative to Devata that resonates with you or that somehow you are connected with.
I must say there are so many mantras, it's easy to get a little bit distracted from time to time. So um, I tend to find that it's wise to stick to one, but would love your thoughts on that in giving advice to us as from your position of wisdom.
Well, there's several things. One, of course, you need concentration and focus and steadiness, but there are also times in which the energies may shift and move in other directions. There's also using mantra along with pranayama, and there are also, mantras that are certain, um, teachings. Then
Yeah.
you also meditate upon the teachings involved. Upanishads have fairly specific teachings, not always easy for us to understand. So, and then the bija mantras are usually connected to a devata. And then, of course, there's just the idea of continual focused awareness.
So would you be using a mantra until your intention unfolds, or would you be using it for self-realization, or would you be using it to heal an aspect of mind, or all three of those things? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, there's many possibilities. There's guidance that you can receive. There's mantras. Usually, when you do a mantra, you have a sankalpa, you have an intention or a motivation as to why you're doing it and for what period of time, so that the mantra gains its siddhi or its result. And just holding to a mantra for a certain regular period of time changes the structure of the brain and the nervous system and helps connect you to subtler currents of intelligence.
Mm. So I often use the mantra, well, yeah, I often use the mantra Ram, just very simply and consistently. And I would love your explanation of the mantra for us if this is simple, so simple.
Ram,
Ram, yeah.
Ram is an interesting mantra. It's often given to children, to
Good.
protect them and to
I'm happy to
calm
be playful like a child with it.
them from sleep. And it has its calming effect, but it also has its deepening effect. Ram is also connected, of course, to the sun and the solar force. And there's also a lot of, whatever aspects of his life or his story that you connect to is also reflected of that. And Ram represents the Dharma, and which is also the right action at any particular time. So it brings harmony and balance into the life.
I
And then
believe
you
I've
have
read.
Hanuman and Sita.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I missed that. So it brings balance into the life through the story of Hanuman and Sita. Is that what you said?
So I said Hanuman and Sita are also part of the story.
Okay.
In fact, there's the three worlds.
Yeah. Three worlds.
Yeah, Sita is born of the earth. She comes out of a furrow in the ground. She's Bhumi Devi.
Uh-huh.
Hanuman is Vayu Putra. He's the atmosphere. He's the power of the wind.
Yes.
And Ram is the deity of the sun. So
Beautiful.
that's what, even in the Jyotish, the avatar of the sun as a planet in the Brihad Parashara Hora Shastra is Ram and the
Okay.
eye work of the sun. So the three worlds are there. But Sita arises from the ground. She's not born. They have a whole set of beings who come into birth without a bodily birth. So she is one of them. The rishis Vasishta and Agastya arise from a special kum or water basin.
And whilst we're talking about it, I should mention it. Unfortunately, I don't have your oracle cards here, but you have a set called, I was just reading them this morning and using them, but I've forgotten what they're called. Forgive me. So your oracle cards with the Ramayana,
Yeah, it's based on Tulsidas Ramayana.
yeah.
Tulsidas Ramayana was done a little later in more Hindi language, but it's very powerful
Mm.
and very inspirational.
So I'd just like to say to people, they're fantastic cards, and I think they teach you a lot about a lot about life and give you some good guidance, based on that seminal text. Also, previously, I've read in one of your books, I believe it was Yoga and Ayurveda, the most popular one. that also the mantra Ram is used for psychic protection. Of course, it's for this third chakra. Yeah.
Psychic protection, that's why it's often used for children, for promoting sleep. And it combines the deeper sleep, but with also a deeper insight.
Okay. And I suppose the lineage of Neem Karoli Baba and Ram Dass, I mean, they really just say that alone, use that mantra alone.
And there's a lot that even Ramakrishna talked about that, just Om Ram.
Right. Understood. Okay, well, we are almost at time today. Is there anything that you would like to impart to anyone who might be listening as an important blessing or guidance on the path?
Well, basically, Vedas are a vast tradition, and they're not easy to access, but there are some sources where that can be done. We always say at least study Upanishads in Gita first. And the mantras have their specific sadhanas. You have various mantric texts that teach that, and the mantra teachers who do that. Sometimes people today just trying to turn it into, just a kind of business, but not so simple. And recognizing again that everything you see is looking at you, and there is a certain communication that's coming to you from the forces of nature, and even, of course, from the forces around you. So that is very important. Vedas are a great legacy. They need to be given a deeper understanding. And in that regard, you have these ancient traditions that are tens of thousands of years old, whereas our English tradition is basically about 500 years old, a few years. Or we've had, various centuries, various countries and cultures, but we should remember the yogic or the Rishi or the sages, the seers that were behind humanity and can still help us if we can, again, look within.
Well, thank you so much. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Or we say, Sri Veda Purushaya Namaha.
Sri Veda Purushaya Namaha.
Some say that is Krishna, some say that is Rama, some say that is just the Purusha of the Vedas or the Purusha of the Yoga Sutras.
Thank you.
And have a great winter solstice, and remember the divine Agni coming out of the earth and where we need to go to raise our civilization to a higher level.
We shall.